And we're live. Welcome to the Higher Training Podcast. On this episode, I am joined by Sean O'Hanlon, who is an athletic therapist and rehabilitation specialist. Got it right that time.
You did indeed, yeah.
And he has been the fellow who's been helping me with my Achilles rehab after I ruptured it. The day after it happened, he was the first man I was coming in to see just to confirm.
I got the panicking messages.
But he'd helped me with a few wee niggles here and there before, but he would be the main man that I would send most of my clients to if they had any little injuries or niggles. And we're going to chat about a whole lot of stuff. The Achilles in particular we'll probably dig into a good bit today, but I think it'd be good for people to get to know a wee bit more about yourself and why you got into athletic therapy and the sports that you were into, which from my knowledge, soccer, calling it soccer because football is football.
Football's football, yeah, absolutely.
So you're a clansman.
I am.
Clan na Gael. We're not going to talk too much about that because we might
come to blows.
But soccer was probably your main sport growing up, was it?
Yeah. So soccer was the big one. I will begrudgingly say soccer, I suppose. But, soccer would have been the big one, I suppose. Like most lads, if you're playing soccer and GAA, it comes to a point where you probably have to choose one or the other if you're serious about both. So when I was kind of 14, 15, I kind of weaned off the Gaelic and started playing a bit more soccer, a bit more seriously. So I was with Belvedere in Dublin, and then I went into the League of Ireland with St. Pat's and Dundalk, and that was me up until I was 18, 19, and then I came back across to the dark side into the GAA.
So you had about 4 or 5 years then that you weren't.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. I played a couple of random minor games here and there for the clans.
Bring them back.
Yeah, nothing too serious. And then I came back in playing for the clans and went in with the late 20s, but didn't really make much of an impact in there, and just been playing senior since.
And with the football, were you, when you were still playing soccer?
We'll stick to that.
We'll call it soccer just for the ease and for any of the Yanks. Were you still playing soccer when you started studying athletic therapy?
Yeah. So I suppose I was lucky enough. I'm just thinking my younger brother there now. I was lucky enough to kind of have a vague idea of what I might want to do for the next couple of years of my life after school finished. So when I was 14, 15, playing football and that, I would have picked up soccer. We'll go soccer. Would have picked up a couple of bad ankle injuries. I actually fractured fib on that side, so tibia and fibula, so the lower leg. And I suppose it sparked a bit of a rehabilitation interest in me, going to different physios, going through the rounds and doing bits of rehab here and there, and kind of thinking, well, maybe I can do this for myself. And it came to crunch time around the CAO and all that kind of stuff. So I had 2 options on my list. I had athletic therapy and training in DCU, and I had sports science in DCU. And if I didn't get number 1, I probably wasn't going to take number 2. So, physio itself never actually crossed my mind, but we'll get into that, I suppose, a little bit more depth now in the next couple of minutes.
100%. Now, I had both of those then in my CEO as well.
Yeah.
I can't remember. ATT would have been more points, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's quite high now at the moment. I think it was 520 or 530 when I was doing it. So
I think the only reason I didn't get into do ATT was because I didn't get enough points in sports science.
Oh, really? Yeah. That might have been your first choice.
Yeah, it was my first choice. Okay. I can't remember what it was for points. I think it was the first year as well. ATT might have been in.
Yeah, it was in its infancy, I'd say, at that stage. Yeah, you're an old fella. I'm only a young fella.
Old boy, yeah. But like with that, I was actually intending on going and doing physio at the end of sports science for me, which is funny. Then sports science made me realise I didn't want to do physio.
Okay.
Did you, at that stage, you didn't think you wanted to get into that?
I suppose my big thing was my interest sparked from sport, and all I wanted to do was work in sports, work with elite athletes, work with high-level populations that wanted to, really get that extra little bit out of rehab. I didn't really have an interest in kind of working in hospitals or work, that kind of side of things. And what I thought was a physio, when I think of physio, is muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones. I had no idea about neurology. I had no idea about respiratory issues. I didn't know that kind of came under that physio umbrella as well. So I suppose that's the big distinction between physio and athletic therapy and training. We spent 4 years studying musculoskeletal injuries, so that's our muscles, our bones, our ligaments, our tendons. Whereas if you were to do your undergraduate in physio, you're spending a year in musculoskeletal, a year in neurology, year in respiratory. You know, you're getting a broader spectrum, which obviously has its own benefits. But I suppose what I wanted to do was sport, and that kind of pushed me in. I didn't know anything about all the political stuff that goes on with it, but yeah, sport was the love, and that's where I went.
We'll go into the politics of all that that situation in a wee while. But so obviously you studied, you would have done your work experience.
Yeah, so I suppose as part of your undergrad, you have to complete 500 hours of clinical placement, and most will complete more than that probably in their time. So as part of my final year, I ended up working with Premier League side Aston Villa for the guts of 4 months, working with their academy sides, the under 18s, the 23s. I was full time living in Birmingham. Fantastic experience, a little bit of first team experience too. They were flying high at that stage with Jack Grealish and Tyrone Mings and the boys. So yeah, it was serious. Yeah.
The Brummie accent's mad, isn't it?
I know, it's crazy, yeah. I kind of, when you're living there for a couple of months, you kind of start to, a few little silly things come out, and then that's fairly beaten out of you once you get home.
Oh yeah. When I lived in London, I was there 4.5 years, and a lot of people struggled to understand me. Funny enough, it was mostly English people, which was strange because like we speak the fucking same language, and we should have the most similar accent.
No.
But I'd have to pronounce things and slow down.
Yeah.
And I'd come home and people were like, why the fuck are you speaking?
Why are you talking like
that?
Yeah.
But I'd say that was eye-opening enough, like get into a setup like that, just even to see how things are done.
Yeah, it's a totally different ball game. Professional sport, contracts involved, money involved, best of the best and everything. There's no stone left unturned, I suppose, in terms of the rehabilitation process too, which was good to see, because you're seeing players every single day. So you're seeing a player get injured on the pitch, you're physically taking them inside with you, you're assessing them there and then, you're moving on to day 1 of rehab the next day, day 2 the next day, day 3 the next day, and so on and so on. Whereas obviously in private clinics and stuff, you know, you might see someone, give them a bit of homework to do, see them in a week, 2 weeks, that kind of thing. So it was a nice way to, I suppose, start off in this industry, seeing like, right, here's how we go from A right back to B, right back to C, right back to D, and then back to play, you know.
That's like nearly most ideal scenario. Like if it was up to you, that would be what you'd get to do with every person.
Of course, yeah, but I mean, costs don't allow for that to happen.
Obviously, yeah. But with that, then you did your experience with Aston Villa.
Yeah.
Branching out then into like the real world of working. That's a big jump to go. Like I know personally for myself, it was a big jump going from college to start doing like real world work.
It's a strange one because came back from Aston Villa, that was the end of 2019, and then January, February, March, you're trying to build into your thesis. You still had that to do in final year, and then obviously the madness that was March 2020 hit, and COVID, graduating into COVID, and they're just, it was hard to even foray into your field then straight away, so you just had to make do. I was working in bars, I was working in the bank for a while as well, and then
Bank of Ireland.
No, AIB, thank God. And then I ended up landing a clinical role in resync physiotherapy then in 2021. So I feel like I've been around forever. It's only 2 years ago now since I started working full time in the clinic. Obviously I've been kind of working for myself from 2020 onwards, social media a little bit, private clients here and there. I've built this place that we're in now. So you've been tipping away here and there, but yeah, it's eye-opening when you get into the real world.
It is. And I find more so for your area than mine, your area is like what I would put into the, I suppose it's health and performance, but you're in an area where your impact on people is really high, and like what they're getting out of it is like quite meaningful to the people. Like even like I was laughing at myself going home. I was in great form after getting the running in today. Like I was like, but it's also hard when you're in that area, but there's money involved, and like starting out in your area, like you obviously have to get people in the door and things like that. And I know when I worked in an osteo clinic in London, there was physios and injury rehab specialists there. I always found it hard, like seeing how they navigated, you know, marketing and trying to get business, but also then you're helping people. It's hard.
It's trying to find that balance, I suppose. So like if you're in a private clinic, you want to help people, get them out of pain, get them injury free, but there's a business to run as well, so you're kind of trying to weigh up, right, how many times do I really need to see this person to get them the most benefit. There's some people that might need to come in, you could have the identical injury, but I might need to see someone weekly, compared to say someone like yourself who's doing the rehab outside of that, where I might say, look, we might see in 2 or 3 weeks time, 4 weeks time, whatever it may be. And just trying to find that balance is tough, because you're not taught that stuff in college. It's about injuries, it's about mechanisms, it's about, you know, everything that goes with it, all the theory, but then the real world's a different place.
Yeah, completely. But I'd say getting into the place you're in now in Resync, then 2 really good places to go in, where you're probably you're not as much pressure of having to go out and seek out all your own kind of clients. People come to there. That's probably a big thing.
I suppose they come with their own, like working in a clinic comes with its own then pressures too. You will have KPIs to meet in terms of sales, that kind of thing does happen. So working in Resync was a great experience, because very busy clinic. You're dealing with a caseload of, you might have 25 clients up to maybe 40 clients a week. So it's very, very busy. You're back to back. You're seeing every injury from 8-year-olds right up to 80-year-olds. And then in my new place now in DPRC in Drogheda, the roles kind of changed slightly, in the sense that I'm still clinic based, but we're working with geriatric populations a lot more. So for anyone that doesn't know what that is, that's older populations in nursing homes and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just enjoying getting a broad spectrum and building up my knowledge.
Best way to go about it. Early on in any career field, like I used to be like, I just want to work with athletes. Doesn't happen. Like it's like there's one thing, the people you want to work with, and then also having a business and making money. It's like you have to find the middle ground.
Absolutely.
I heard someone in the podcast not so long ago saying the main bulk of your business should be stuff that makes you money, and then almost funds the side of things that you actually like to do, or you've more of an interest in.
And I was lucky enough, I suppose, that I got the clinical role. I was able to work away in that role and try and build my own clinic here in Dundalk up, which I'm lucky enough to have quite a busy clinic on Saturday mornings now for sports injuries and work related injuries. So I'm kept going with minimal, I suppose, advertisement and stuff at present. So I like getting people in the door from word of mouth, because you know I'd be hopeful that people are coming because there's good things being said.
Well, I have nothing but good things to say about you, and that's the reason why I send fucking a whole lot of people your way. But
I appreciate
there's a couple of, well, 2 of them were, well, one of them was with a back injury, and one of them was end up being like I suppose I can't really name drop people here.
No,
SI joint sort of an issue. But what sort of a common things do you see people for, or areas that you find that you tend to help people with quite a bit in terms of the sport injuries? Maybe we'll.
In sports, I suppose you're going to see a broad spectrum because of the chaos, but the biggest ones are going to be your ankles, I suppose, and your hamstrings. They're 2 massive ones that we see all the time in football players and soccer players.
That's hurting you every time you say it.
Yeah, but ankles and hamstrings are massive in sports, and then in your general population, one of the biggest ones is lower back pain, general stiffness, maybe mid back, thoracic pain, and stuff like that. So they're areas that you work in every day, and I suppose sometimes you work in them so much that you think the info you're giving people is very simple and basic in nature, but you can make a big difference with some exercise based therapy with people an awful lot of the time.
Ankles and hamstrings,
big ones.
I've never, well, I suppose maybe it's because I was a shite football. I never had any hamstring issues.
You have to run fast to get a hamstring.
Exactly. You seen me run today, you can tell straight away. But ankle injuries was definitely one thing. I had heaps of them growing up. Just used to roll my ankle all the time.
And I suppose it's the one that sparked my interest. My first one was a grade 2 ligament sprain in my right ankle. So that was where I was like, wow, this is an injury, and I can't play football now, soccer, whatever.
Call it football now.
We'd say football now, yeah.
GA and football.
Yeah. Right. So that was the big one, I suppose. And then, I suppose the ankles are one that if I had known what I knew then, or know now what I needed to know then, geez, it would have been different. But they're rehabbed quite poorly, I would say, in the general sense, because we think it's a simple ankle. You sprained your ankle, just rest it and get back running in 2 or 3 weeks, and we don't address the deficits that are left.
The only exercise that I was ever given from any physio that I saw all the times that I'd hurt my ankle playing rugby, Gaelic, or just rolling them over home was like single leg balance. Like literally just standing on one foot and just seeing how long I could stay there.
Yeah, it's not going to cut it.
No.
It's not going to cut it. No. Yeah, you're left with a whole pile of issues, I suppose, when you damage an ankle. But I'll speak in a general sense. Massive thing's going to be your calf strength straight off the bat. And most people, because the exercise itself will be very simple, something like a double leg calf raise or single leg calf raise, you kind of tend to, sure, that's easy. Just do a couple of them. Sure, that exercise doesn't work. But if done correctly and strengthen that calf properly, yeah, you'll certainly feel your calf working. Anyone that's come to me knows what a calf feels like when they get it working.
Oh, well, I fucking know what a calf feels like. Hopefully I'll know what a calf looks like again whenever this fucker starts growing up a little bit.
Absolutely.
I think with like from any of the exercises that I had tried to help my ankles before I started learning about training and studying and shit, they would have all been really light, easy exercise. Maybe the first time you do them, they might be a bit of a challenge, but they're not really like stimulating to a degree. It's like really easy, light exercises.
Yeah, and then I suppose what happens is people tend to go. We have a bad relationship, I suppose, with therapy in general. You know, you'll go to the physio or the athletic therapist to be fixed. You know, 1 session or 2 sessions. That's not how it works. We're here to facilitate rehabilitation and building you back up and showing you where you need to improve to get there. So, like a timeline for a typical ankle, if you go out there and roll your ankle in the driveway now and get you in here, you'll be swollen. You'll be, you know, there'll be maybe a bit of discoloration around that ankle. And the first day or two post injury, that's the only time really where you might take it easy and rest. But thereafter, an ankle needs to be loaded pretty quickly and getting the weight down through it nice and slowly, showing the ankle that it's okay. And then you'll build up your calf strength, your balance, foot intrinsic strength. Then once you get past that stage, then you're back to hopping, landing, teaching the foot how to absorb load and stuff like that. And then we're back to gradual running, twist and turning. So there's a bit involved. And even if you just took that process alone, the question I'm always asked with ankles or any injury is, how long am I going to be out? I always say, and you know, I don't know. I can give you a rough idea, but if you even just look at what you need to do between now and getting back to the demands of your sport, it's going to take you a couple of weeks at least. So yeah, I think people don't respect them type of injuries enough when they happen.
No, and I think the timeline that the people are looking for is like, when can I go back and do it? Not that when can I go back and do it without me being in an absolute awful way for days or weeks after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's some. You see it all the time. Like people go back and they fall into a cycle of pain and they wonder why they have a sore or chronic kind of unstable ankle, or my ankle's always giving me issues, and it's because it was probably poorly rehabbed initially. It's because I haven't had a hamstring injury. I'm gonna get a bit more curious on this one, and because it's something I would see a lot as well with like field sport athletes with hamstrings, quite common because it's fucking stressed quite a bit with high speed running. Would you say that obviously fear is a big part with any injury? Would you say fear is plays a bigger role with injuries like hamstring for people who are in field based sport than an ankle? Because I see a lot of people will come back with ankle injuries, foot injuries, things like that. Once they've done the bit of rehab, gotten back, plyos, running, all of that, that's grand. Might get a wee flare up, but it's like, it's not as scary to them as maybe I've seen some of the people who have hamstring issues. If they feel a little bit of tension in that hamstring when they're out running, even if they're not running fast, the fucking fear is mad high. Yeah, I suppose like with a hamstring, the reason that's probably feared is because of if you have suffered a ruptured hamstring before, it's painful when it happens. It's quite an aggressive mechanism of injury. You know, you'll get this pop sensation, fibers will rupture, and you'll certainly know you've injured yourself. So I think that's maybe why the fear plays a big role. It's not necessarily that the hamstring issue is any worse than, say, a bad ankle issue, but I'd say that's why there's the fear, because when we get to those higher speeds again, our body's recognizing, okay, we're potentially damaging some fibers here. When if you've done the rehab correctly, then you probably shouldn't have that fear, because you'll have graded exposure to it. But again, there's the gap in the rehab where we'll do a little bit of rehab stuff, we'll do a few bridges, basic stuff. We won't really expose ourselves to gradual high speed running, sprints, all that kind of stuff. We'll tend to just go from rehab, as in here in a gym, back to a pitch. And then we don't open up. Like, people would be surprised if they wore GPS, how little they actually hit their top speed in training. You think you're sprinting, even in matches, you think you're sprinting, but if you were to do a max speed test and then compare those numbers, you're probably not getting close. So it's that exposure to high speed running.
I think it was Keane O'Brien, me mate. He was on about the different speeds. Like you get up there was a paper done, and he was kind of critiquing it about high speed running was something like 18 kilometers or whatever it was, and then actual max speed is like something like close to the 28 or something like that,
if not more.
And that was like, he's like, that's pretty poor score as well. Like
it is pretty poor score. Like if you're looking at it, I suppose I'd call myself an average GA club player. Some people call me a poor one, some people call me a better one, but you know, there'd be times you'd easily hit 30-31 kilometers an hour, you know, on the regular in your speed training and stuff. So you're talking around 9 meters per second, maybe 9.1 meters per second. So that's fast, but anything above, you know, you're talking like 8.8 meters per second, 8.7. So in and around that 30 kilometer mark is starting to get decent, but it's by no means fast, and them numbers sound really small and close together. But if you looked at that race between someone who runs at 31 and someone who runs at say 28 or 29,
it's a big
28,
difference.
29 is not, you're not close.
No. And I think because so much of the sport, in particular GA, is like spent at that, like maybe that I would call it fucking middle speed. Like it's not it's not whatever the papers said that it's a top speed of 18. It's middle speed. Like, people see that there's so much of the sport spent at that's the most of their energy is spent on that shit. And I like the idea of training to the extremes. So going back to the hamstring, would you say one of the gaps is just that high speed running?
Definitely one of the biggest gaps, I suppose. In since I've kind of been in this field of study and all that, we've seen a definite improvement in people's knowledge of how to rehab a hamstring in a gym. So, you know, we know that the hamstring is what's called a biarticulate muscle. So it crosses two joints. So we have knee and we have hip. So to train the hamstring optimally, we have to obviously train it from the hip and train it from the knee as well. So things like your RDLs, you know, things like your Nordic curls, basic stuff where we now know all that. Like there's very few GA club players, for example, that wouldn't have been exposed to some level of RDL, or, you know, they've done the hamstring. I'm sure someone's given them a Nordic to do. But it's then that knowledge of how to go from there back to running fast. So that's probably the biggest gap still in hamstring rehab.
And then in the middle of that, then what I see a lot is people just not even ever doing appropriate fucking plyometric training at all. True,
yeah, you don't get a lot of that either. Plyos is the big buzzword, I suppose, in this world at the moment. But yeah, there's not a lot of exposure to hops, landings, single leg hops, single leg landings. I don't know how quickly we can close that gap, but I think anyone who's interested or anyone who wants to improve will kind of stumble across this stuff, and it will slowly filter itself down.
Yeah, like I know as soon as I realised how much of a fucking lapse in knowledge that I had to that side of things, and like running and sprinting in general, that kind of that area, I was like, fuck, that's an untapped like fucking area of like potential for myself as well, but also like a lot of field-based athletes, most of their training, when it's not training with their sport, is in the gym, lifting weights. Yeah,
and then it's the way weights are lifted too. Like with Songtime, everyone's doing 3x12. You know, like bodybuilding stuff, and you have to be specific, I suppose, to what you want to do. And another big, you know, gap in knowledge is the lack of training in season with gal lads. You know, they'll do the gym work maybe early in the year, and then it just falls off a cliff, and then we're picking up little soft tissue injuries here and there, and we're wondering why. And it's definitely an area that can be improved, but I think it's the knowledge that has to get out there a little bit more about what you need to be doing. Lads know they need to be in the gym, but what do I actually need to be doing in there, and not spending, you know, an hour and a half in there just getting in and getting out,
and not giving them putting fucking serious amounts of fatigue on them. That's going to affect their training, because I know jiu-jitsu, the sport that I would do, you get a lot of boys that just won't do it because they don't want to be fucked for jiu-jitsu, or they don't want to be sore for jiu-jitsu. And I think you don't get it as much at GA, but you do get, maybe they won't say it, but they'll maybe avoid it. Oh sure, I'm not going to train on Wednesday in the gym because I've got training Thursday night. You know, but
and people are fearful, I suppose, of getting injured. Is the big thing. I don't want to get injured, you know, don't need to be doing all the weights or whatever. But and look, that works for some, absolutely. You look at, like, years gone by, there's my old lad, he never touched the weight in his life, and he had a long career playing GAA at both club and county level, so it's horses for courses. But definitely we have evidence to show us that we can certainly help reduce the amount of soft tissue injuries we have. Obviously there's injuries that we can't prevent, and I hate the word prevention, but that's another story.
When we talk about prevention in a wee while. But on the training in season, I think if people didn't fucking go at it like with a bodybuilding sort of a head, it probably would have benefit them a lot more. And the likes of Keane, I mentioned already, pushing things like singles and like fucking just training without trying to absolutely annihilate the body.
Absolutely,
you know, the bodybuilding method is like, right, stress the body there. It's all about breaking everything down, break it down to build it back up, whereas you don't need to do that in season. You just kind of like enough stimulation to keep the body maintaining all the stuff that you've done.
Big time. And like then you want to do obviously maybe like a strength day and then like a power day where you're moving stuff a little bit faster. And the big thing in season is that all your gym work is just to facilitate what you're doing on the pitch. Absolutely don't need to be coming out of a gym fatigued and annihilated and wrecked, because that will lead to potential injuries. Again, that's anecdotal. There's no studies on that per se, but certainly in theory that would lead to more soft tissue bits and bobs. But if you're coming out fresh or relatively fresh from a gym session, it should benefit you then.
And we're speaking about GA there and the injuries, but just in general with preparation for boys to go out and play Gaelic football, what other gaps do you see? Maybe in terms of what management is doing, or boys themselves, or even other strength and conditioning coaches, like what you see them
in
do.
Terms of injuries and stuff, or just general.
In terms of injuries in general, because you play a sport as well, so it's not just coming from an injury perspective. You've been in a few setups, you know. I
suppose, like, to be fair, things in the GA are getting there. The gap is certainly closing. Like, I'm looking at, say, for example, my time with St. Pat's in Dublin, very professional setup up there, trying to do everything right. Then you're with Dundalk under 19s and stuff. That's again a decent setup. And then seeing the setup over in Aston Villa, and you're looking at, okay, well, what are these guys doing compared to what GA lads are doing? And like decent club players who are looking after themselves are probably doing 90% of what the guys are doing, just in a shortened space of time, I suppose. But big gaps are, I suppose, your knowledge on what to be doing in season. That's still the biggest for me. High speed running, sprinting, plyos, they're your big ones that need to be closed. But other than that, lads are doing quite well. Nutrition is a big one too. Lads eat like crap. I'm guilty of it myself, but I've been improving on that front. I was working with a coach there for a while, Darren McGarn, and he's kind of got all that stuff in check for me. And yeah, that does make a big difference.
I think the in-season is the biggest thing now, because if you've committed from pre-season, then like you've, not to say that what you're doing in the pre-season doesn't make a difference, but like if you're working fucking pretty hard and you're like covering most of the bases, you're probably had a decent enough off pre-season. That's gone to shit if you're just gonna not train then for the whole season, which is what a lot of boys do at club level anyway.
Yeah, it certainly falls off a little bit, but yeah, you just need to keep that going. But yeah, it doesn't have to be crazy, once or twice a week, but it needs to be topped up.
So we're not doing too bad in the GA.
No,
that's not too bad.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
If we could spend less time with the shiny object syndrome, that would be a big.
That's big, yeah. But that's a tough one.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. Yeah.
What shiny objects do you see people going for lately that you're like scratching your head at? Or
I still see kinesio tape an awful lot. Yeah, that's a big one. What else?
And if you're not sure what kinesio tape is, it's the blue tape usually. Well, it's not all blue. It's any colour tape. You see it wrapped around shoulders. And
you used to see like Gareth Bale wearing it on his hamstrings and stuff. Very little evidence to support anything happening there, other than maybe a little bit of proprioception coming, a little bit of feedback that you're getting back, but it's not doing anything performance or injury reduction wise. What else? I suppose like tools all have their place. Like, we tend to shit on things quite quickly and hammer things, but things like massage guns, other treatments like, your cupping therapy, all that kind of stuff that lads get done. If it makes them feel a little bit better and they can train a little bit better and they understand that it's not this, miraculous recovery tool, I'm all for it. But I think we just need to focus on the low-hanging fruit a little bit more too in terms of recovery. I think recovery is a big thing. We play a game, you get a win, everyone's going, yeah, recovery session tomorrow, lads, come on, we're all going to the sea or something, which is great. But you have to get the right amount of protein in. You have to top up your carbs. You have to get ready for that next session on the Tuesday.
You have to not go drink 12 pints that night.
12 pints doesn't help.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the low hanging fruit, I think, first, and then work yourself higher up if you have extra time.
I like that idea, because I would have shot on a lot of stuff in the past, like trainer wise, and from my time working in that osteopath clinic, from what they would have been sending me across stuff and seeing people online like Adam Meekins and stuff about like certain methodologies. Yeah. But I think there's time and place for all tools. I think it's the importance that people place on certain ones.
Definitely.
And now the importance placed by management and players on pre-match banded activation is the one that grinds my gears the most at the moment.
Yeah, the bands. Look, again, they have their place. Like you can get lads working, lads feel a little bit better in their hips. They feel like they might be running a little bit better. Look, there's a place for it, but it's certainly not a magic wand.
Not 20 minutes of banded activation and foam rolling before.
2-3 minutes tops.
That's what I like to hear.
Your advice there.
That's what I like to hear. I would have done all that stuff, like, believed in all of it. And I think it's when you've done that and you've bought into all these methods, then when you start seeing how they're not the magic fucking pill that they're sold, that you start being like, you get a little bit of a twist against them. But I'm coming back to them. I'm even starting to use Smith machines and stuff nowadays.
Oh Jesus! I'll not ask.
Hey, nothing wrong with Smith.
No, they're good.
Useful.
Every single thing has a place.
Exactly. Well, the reason why I've actually been thinking of Smith machines is getting back into the Olympic lifts and just getting better at the shapes that I want to be able to make for
absolutely,
that. So that's what the area that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But look, you can think of any other, as long as you have a good reason that you think you want to do it.
It's all about reasoning. It's all about your clinical reasoning, and even in terms of being a certified AT, like everything we do or everything we prescribe to someone, it's not just for show. And anyone who's kind of just, here's someone with a hamstring, here's 3 exercises sort of a thing, and here you go. Well, why are you doing that, or why are you doing this? You have to think about what's actually happening, clinical reasoning for why you're prescribing something to someone. Will this help them improve this, yes or no? So it's your thought process around everything's really, really important, not just willy-nilly kind of doing things. And
that's one of the reasons why I from the first time that I came in and got treated by you, I liked the way that you went about things, because you did give a bit of reason, and and if I had any questions, boom, it's not like just this is just what we do.
I find a big thing was when I was younger, worked with some great physios and stuff, rehabbing me, but I suppose I didn't understand a lot of what was happening or why I was doing certain things, like maybe a bit of ultrasound has been done on my ankle. Again, not a big fan of that now because we don't have much evidence there, but you didn't understand, and if something's been explained, at least you could maybe try and reason it yourself in your head. But I've taken that into my career now, I suppose, and hopefully I can just get the message across to people why we're doing things, because if you understand why you're doing it, you're way more likely to do it. And one of the biggest things with rehab is compliance. If I get someone complying, we're going to get better.
I'm very like that. If I think I have questions about why we're doing something, or I think we should be doing something differently, it doesn't happen to me too much. It hasn't happened to me at all in terms of the rehab stuff, but just in general life stuff, I just I lose a little bit of my will to want to do that thing.
Absolutely, but sure, it's natural. You will.
So I thought it'd take longer to start talking about this Achilles, but we'll dig into some of the Achilles stuff, and the mechanisms of an Achilles rupture. That's something I've not tried to think about for about 5 months there, because it would have pissed me off, because I would have tried to not think about all the stuff that I may have done that would have contributed to it, even though I know that life is chaos, shit just happens. I've been trying not to think about it, but I've been opening my mind up to just trying to think back and learn more about the mechanisms of an Achilles rupture. And the biggest things I've found is that people just don't actually know why some of these fucking Achilles ruptures happens.
The Achilles itself is a strong, robust structure that we use all the time, but Achilles ruptures, they're usually just one-off traumatic events. We don't know why they happen fully. We can always come up with extrinsic and intrinsic risk factors, so things that maybe we could have controlled a bit better, like our training load or this, that and the other, or extrinsic things like you can't control them, but reality is we don't understand. We don't know why they happen. It could happen like someone like you who's dosed their plyos, looks after their strength training, all that kind of stuff, and it happened to you in a freak accident. I'm sure everyone knows your crack if they're listening to your podcast.
Well, I've never actually told it on.
Yeah, go for
so
it. Sure. What's your experience, I suppose, of the feeling?
The feeling. Well, for context, it was a Friday night. I was coaching the GA team. It was one of the I'd say it was one of the first few, maybe the third week of pre-season training.
Yeah.
Taking the lads. I've been coaching this team for just the third year now, so I know all the lads. It's the club I played for. I know all these lads since I was fucking any age, and going in, doing our warm up, doing some form easier stuff, isos and light plyos. Then I was moving on to single leg hops, and went to do a forward single leg hop, and then just on the landing, boom, I was like, something not right there. I just felt a bit funny.
Left heel.
Yeah. I don't know if I can describe the feeling, but it wasn't pain. It was just like a weird sensation.
Okay.
And
did you hear anything?
Actually, no, I do remember the feeling. It felt like someone whacked me in the back of the leg. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm lying.
Yeah.
And because I was messing around with one of the boys beforehand, and I thought he hit me in the back of the leg with something. That's what I thought. I was like, what the fuck did this prick do? Like, yeah. Like I was like, be a bit of mess going on in the session as you would expect.
Yeah.
And I turned around and I was like, there's nobody even near me.
Yeah.
I went to walk and just kind of buckled under me. That was a perfectly timed crunch down.
Yeah, nice.
And I just buckled and I just sat down onto the floor, and all the boys just like staring at me, and I pulled up the trousers, and I could see that the calf had rolled up. Yeah,
Just
and
completely
I
retracted.
knew straight away. I was like, boys, I'm after tearing the Achilles. And they're like, how do you know? I was like, look at that.
Yeah. It's very rare that you won't tear 100% of the fibers. If you rupture Achilles, like Achilles will go
The whole lot of it.
usually, yeah. Like sometimes you rupture 50%, but usually bang, it's gone the whole lot.
And they were all staring around like in pure panic, and there was a bit of like, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. And then I was sitting there and I was like, I just can't really do anything with this now. So I just was delegating boys, right?
Yeah.
Go on to true coach, finish off the session, do all this.
Yeah.
But they're all like shook.
I'd say so.
They thought that's like, they said it sounded like somebody dropped the dumbbell.
Right, so they heard something.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And that's like, usually that's the mechanism. Like things like hamstrings and stuff, usually you have one or two mechanisms, like max sprinting or maybe a max stretch, where you might get a tear one way or the other. But usually Achilles is just like a traumatic event like that, where you plant. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it's a little bit more common in kind of middle-aged men, but it does happen to younger populations as well. And the tendon just goes and it's gone. And then I suppose you contacted me. Was that
that night? Yeah, that night, because I knew I ruptured it. I knew there's going to be nothing immediate done in like, right, I don't need to go to fucking hospital now.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll give you a buzz, see what the crack is. We come in here that day. Then she did the Thompson test.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is, it's been the least painful injury of my life, but the most debilitating injury, because I've had zero pain, like, really.
Yeah. You haven't been too bad with pain. Yeah, and you won't be.
Yeah.
So yeah, that day you came in. Thompson test, I suppose, for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's a prone test where you're lying flat, and it's just a test of the calf itself, and it's very simple. It's a squeeze test. I'll squeeze your calf. Will your foot will either plant or flex or not. If the calf is intact or the Achilles is intact, it will, and if not, it'll go. So there was no movement in your foot whatsoever. So I said, yeah, look, and there was a clear observable tear. So I said, unfortunate pig, but you're under pressure here.
Sure luck.
Yeah.
And then from there on, it was the awkward process of trying to see about what's going to be going next. Obviously, we were chatting, and anyone I chatted, it was like a, surgery or not, what should we go for?
Yeah, so we actually, there's no consensus. There's studies that show we have great results with conservative therapy, and there's studies that show we have great results with surgical repair as well, and similar results is the big thing. I suppose the biggest thing was again, it comes down to the individual. So what do you need to be able to do, and how quickly do you need to be able to do it, and for how long are you going to have to do it? So, for example, you have an elite, say, Premier League soccer player tears the Achilles. Well, he's probably going to go and have surgery, get it repaired, rehab it, and hope that it's a bit more robust than doing it conservatively. and because he just doesn't want to waste any time either, hoping that it gets better, sort of a thing. So you had, I wouldn't say a bit more time in your hands as such, but you were kind of like, no, look, I want to maybe go the conservative route with this, and there is no right or wrong really at the moment, but I think conservative is what we kind of decided. So
well, it actually got decided for me.
Wow, yeah, sorry.
Because I was chatting with Keane O'Brien, put me on to Matt Watson, and he was giving me.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll just get a bit of information from everybody.
Yeah.
His opinion was go and get the surgery.
Yeah.
I think he's doing a PhD on Achilles at the moment, and that's what he had said. But when I went into the hospital, it was kind of being pushed. You're not a Premier League. There's not a Premier League club. You're not going to get scanned. I didn't even get an MRI because even though I wanted one, but that's
to be fair, we didn't need it to confirm diagnosis as such, but could have done with it still. And I was like, I want to get surgery. To end up being basically told that no, we're not going to do surgery, and that I'd have to basically like go through the whole process again of getting fucking maybe go private and all. And I had that say just like give me the cast, put me in the cast. So you ended up casted for how many weeks?
It was 4 weeks, I think.
4 weeks, and then changed the position in the cast, wasn't it?
No, actually it was 4 weeks, change the position in the cast, and another 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, and then boot. Yeah, so like that's typically how you would manage a conservative. Sometimes they don't cast it, but usually they'll cast it just to keep you in that position and allow the Achilles to heal, and slowly just add length back into it as you heal.
I don't know what I would have fucking done headwise if I didn't try and train around it though in the interim whenever I was waiting to get seen by fucking hospital, and then when I was casted.
Oh no, massively, because otherwise like your head will not be there at all. I remember being casted in that leg, and I was young, 15, and it's not a good place to be when you can't do anything that you like to.
I think if there's one thing fucking anyone listening to this podcast, if they get any terrible injury, just train as much as you can around it.
And like usually we get a leg injury, we'd probably stop doing everything usually and just let it heal and stuff like that. But there's always stuff we can do, especially say at the elite level. When I was dealing with them players every day, someone's in a leg cast, well, they're contracted to the football club. They still have to come to work, which is go and do a gym session or go and do a pitch, or not a pitch, a swing-based session or whatever it may be. Cardio with the arms, rope stuff, boxing, everything. So there's loads of ways to train around injuries, and I find we are quick to put on the brakes and just say no, I'm not going to do anything. But training around it's massively helpful.
I don't know if like it give me a chance to work on other stuff that I would have pushed away, like walk back towards get the 100 kg bench for the first time, and it was actually this last time. Cheers, boy. Need to get the 120. I'm not going to mention his name anymore, but Keane basically turned around and fucking said to me, he's like, look, you can sit at home and whine, or you can pivot and find something else. He gave me tough love. You need people like that as well. But then after that, then we kind of got doing the basics of like just taking the ankle through the fucking movements that it could go through.
Once you got out of your cast, I suppose then we started the rehab process, and we were able to nicely build you up, I suppose, from the ground again and work our way up. So we started off in our open chain, just getting the ankle moving from dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, up and down, bit of inversion and eversion, and I'm sure you can remember how skeptical your ankle was of moving in the early stages because it's been casted for a little while. So once we got you going, then we just gradually started to build you up then into some seated double leg raises, isos first, and into our doubles and so on and so on.
And she's flown since. But I think fear wise I haven't actually been too bad the whole way through it, but it's those initial jumps, that's where the fear came. Not literal physical jumps, but metaphorical jumps, from like going from isos then to actually going through some more movement bit.
You knew I was going to push it that little bit further that day, but there was some sort of new stimulus. So I knew there was always a little worry coming through that door, but you always left feeling a lot better.
Exactly. Today as well, now I wasn't too worried about the running. I was actually more like, fuck, get excited there. But the fear is probably the hardest thing that you have to deal with most of the time with injuries.
And giving people reassurance is a big thing. We like to feel really important as therapists that I'm doing this with this patient, or that's where manual therapy sometimes comes in, and people are always, releasing things or rubbing things or twisting things or cracking things or whatever it is. But a lot of the time, if we rehabilitate things correctly, facilitate people, educate them a little bit on what their injury is, and give them reassurance that look, this is going to get better with time and with the rehab we're doing. Most people will respond really, really well.
And I don't know whether it's just because the fear of me not being able to do shit that I used to do physically drove me. But I've never been as consistent with training as I have been since rupturing the Achilles.
Yeah, and that's where goal setting comes in the rehab process as well. Really important to set small, measurable ones. Sounds really simple. You're an S&C coach yourself, so you know all about goal setting. But even for you, I had to set small little targets. Right, next time you come into me, this is what you need to be able to do. And then you went away for 2 weeks, worked on it, came back to me, hit the target, and on we went. If I said you need to be able to do all of these things in 6 months' time, you would have lost the head. You know, well, you would have tried, but you wouldn't have been able to meet things. But just setting those little measurable targets in rehab is really, really important, not just in the normal S&C world.
And it taught me as well how much training, like particularly because a lot of stuff early on was lower load, how much you can actually just do if you just like get your arse up and actually do it. Like you can, because like I was doing heaps of shit, like rehab stuff, like most days, like
especially at that early stage.
And then even since then, like fucking, like how much is a load of calf raises really gonna like stress you? Like obviously depending on the weight that you're using and the fucking things like that.
But consistency definitely the key with rehab.
And even when I got back doing squats and shit like that, I was like, fuck, squatting 3 times a week, this could crack. This could crack. Maybe I'll become a powerlifter if you could do Zerchers for powerlifting.
Yeah, Zercher bias.
Yeah, serious Zercher bias. I just fucking love doing them.
Oh, you do, yeah.
I'm a sick sort of bastard. I love the pain.
Strange.
It is strange, even though I have a safety bar in the gym. But look,
safety bar is good too. I like the safety bar.
It is. Now,
just because you're going to go on something there, that's half hour. That's on about 47 minutes now.
is it?
Yeah.
Fuck.
We're chatting about it.
We're flying, right?
I can go 15 more if you need, or 10 more.
Yeah, I want to get in the bit about physio and ATT because that was one thing I definitely wanted to chat quickly about. Well, let's see about the quickly. So when I worked at the osteo clinic, it was the first time that I really understood the whole kind of sphere of injury and the different practitioners that there is within it. Now, there are osteopaths, we have physiotherapists, we have athletic therapists, we have sports medicine doctors, we have a whole different categories of people in that sphere. But the two that I thought were the most similar would have been athletic therapists and kind of physio. But in terms of like people seeking out help, or in terms of teams hiring people, it would always be physios that they would go for, even if it was a sports related stuff. And in my mind, athletic therapist is more for sports than physio is.
Again, there's just not a whole pile of understanding in Ireland, I suppose, about what a certified athletic therapist is. And I touched on it earlier on, but it's all about musculoskeletal injuries. So your muscles, your tendons, your bones, your ligaments. But the big gap in Ireland, I suppose, is between physio and AT in the private sector. So you'll never see an athletic therapist employed in, say, the HSE at the moment, for example. And it's all around the CORI registration. Now, I think physio got CORI registration in like 2016, so chartered physio. And ATs are shortly, hopefully, going to be reviewed for the same, but that process is taking a long time at the moment, and it causes a lot of trouble for us in the sense that it's difficult for us to say refer patients for MRI scans. It's difficult to get patients in because they're claiming off their health insurance, and there's only maybe 2 or 3 like Irish Life and Leia that might recognise us for people's health insurance policies and stuff. So it's causing a bit of bother, but hopefully we get that CORI registration at some stage.
Didn't realise these were through Irish Life, and that's not too bad then. Because to me, I've seen a whole lot of physios, and I've seen a lot of clients and people go to physios, but any of the sports related injuries, I've always found that like I'm going to put somebody towards someone who works mostly with people in sport, who's going to give them actionable stuff that they can go away and do themselves. And I've seen that. Now, this isn't me shitting on physios, because I also know a lot of good physios as well. Really good physio helped me mum with her knee injury initially whenever she got that. But then I think there's a big difference between that type of an injury and then the injuries we were speaking about, like sport related injuries. So if you're somebody that's injured, obviously your bias is that you're an athletic therapist. But if you get a sports injury, should your first thoughts, if you are looking to get help with it, should it be to go to athletic therapist or physio?
I say that. No, I would say both. I'm going to sit in the fence on this one. Physio or athletic therapist, but certainly athletic therapists are well versed in musculoskeletal injuries. We spent 4 years studying that alone with the rehab, so I would say we maybe come out a little bit better off in terms of the rehab side of things. Obviously physios have their areas of expertise then that we would know idea about, respiratory and like all that kind of stuff, all that rehab, we just don't touch it. So yeah, if your injury is to do with muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones, pop in and see me.
It's such a political answer. Well, that's a good enough answer for me in that front. But I do hope that you do get recognised the way you need to, because I think physios and maybe athletic therapists could work together, because there's obviously issues that may pop up to be more in their sphere, and there's ones that are more in your sphere. But
absolutely, like it's as you said, working in the place in London, it's a multidisciplinary team. Like you just work together to help people get better from their injuries, and that's all anyone wants to do. So
exactly,
if we can all work together, it'd be much better.
100%. And if we got more people like myself and yourself working together, or PTs and coaches just feeling good, just referring people on, it just makes things fucking run much smoother.
I think so, definitely.
Like nutrition is another one where I think people should be like more happy to refer people on to, because like
definitely. Everyone thinks they're a nutritionist these days, I think.
yeah, and like I would have been guilty of maybe overthinking my own knowledge in it. Like I've done nutrition courses, I've done nutrition in sports science, but that doesn't make me a nutritionist. But feeling confident enough to accept what you know and then refer them out.
Absolutely.
It's a quality that unfortunately not everybody has garnered. No, but big up the ATTs. We want to push them forward. It's only going to help everybody in the sport, in all sports.
And it just helps to regulate it as well, because that's what it's there for. CORE is there to protect healthcare professionals and protect the people they're treating. So I think it's very, very important.
I'd love to see more regulation coming into strength and conditioning, and then personal training also, but I can't see either happening.
I think it's a bit of a minefield when you kind of push into that spectrum a little bit more.
Yeah, unfortunately. We've got some final kind of more fast fire questions. I'm going to whip out my card, right? Now, I'm going to call it a hashtag that I've seen, and I just want you to comment on it whatever way you want, short or long. Okay. If it ends up just being one hashtag because we go for 5 minutes, that's all good. Okay. Right. Hashtag injury prevention.
We can't prevent injuries from happening. They happen, but we can certainly reduce the risk of injuries, is what I would say. So injury prevention is this big industry. We can't prevent them, but we can reduce their risk of happening. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Boom. Concise. Okay. Hashtag prime session.
Like primer?
Yeah.
I use them.
Yeah.
I've started to dose them in. But again, it has to be power based. There's little bits of evidence there, so I certainly use them, and hopefully we get more evidence to support them.
Boom. Hashtag sitting is bad.
Sitting is not bad. The only bad posture is the one you're in for too long.
Hashtag ice baths are great for recovery.
Ice baths blunt inflammation, things like that. So if you're looking to recover from a game because you have a game on a Tuesday, absolutely. Saturday, Tuesday, you use them. But if you're trying to get adaptation, especially in the gym and pre-season and stuff like that, you're looking for that muscle soreness, you're looking for that inflammation. So yeah, they're good for recovery sometimes, but low hanging fruit, nutrition, sleep, it works.
Yeah, smoke blunts don't blunt your recovery from training. No, I can't get on board with that. Don't. Okay, right. We're gonna go for a bit of this or that. Give honest opinions here. What you'd prefer to go for. You can justify it or not. You can just give an answer, whatever you want. Okay, gym or pitch-based session.
Pitch-based session. Speed.
Yeah. Loud As in the Loud Gaelic team or Dundalk FC?
Loud.
Loud. Football or soccer? I've changed the wording around for this.
Football.
Boom. General physical preparation or sport specific training?
Sport specific training.
Yeah, I know it's a wanky one. I just wanted to see where you go with it. If you had to choose full recovery or just your own personal preference, ice bath or sauna?
Yeah, I love the sauna.
Yeah.
I love the sauna, yeah. Just for everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, I just like the sauna. Not for the benefits.
You're sick if you like an ice bath.
Yeah. So some sort of sick cunt. Chinese or a chippy?
Chippy, and unfortunately Kieran's is closed.
Where's the goat from now that Kieran's is closed?
Europa's not bad. I would say it's the goat, but I haven't been touching the chippies too much in the last couple of.
I can tell, yeah. I wish I could say the same. And that's it. I'll not throw you under the bus anymore than that, my man. That was a fucking good one. Thank you very much.
Stuff.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. Make sure you go and follow Sean. Is Sean O'Hanlon Athletic Therapy, is it?
Yeah, Sean Hanlon AT on
AT.
Instagram.
Boom. Go follow him. Watch his stuff. He doesn't post that often because he's a busy man, but when he does, it's good shit. Make sure you follow the podcast. These are all sound. Good luck.